You're a successful, high-achieving ADHD entrepreneur, and yet you have feelings of self-doubt, burnout, and worry. What the hell? We're doing well, we're successful. What is going on? Well, today I have Dr. Mary Anderson. She's a licensed psychologist and speaker with over a decade of experience helping patients become happier, healthier, and sustainably high-achieving. She's also of a recently published book, the author of her recently published book, The Happy High Achiever: 8 Essentials to Overcome Anxiety, Manage Stress, and Energize Yourself for Success Without Losing Your Edge. What a great topic to talk on the Impulsive Thinker. Dr. Mary, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, André. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you. And hello to all the listeners out there.
So let's get right into it. What is a high achiever and what things get in their way?
That's a great question. And there's some complexity to this because a high achiever, often what I've found is that high achievers don't even necessarily identify themselves as such, because almost a hallmark of high achievers is that they'll focus on what they haven't done or haven't achieved yet. So when I'm working with high achieving patients like lawyers, they'll say, well, Dr. A, I haven't made partner yet, or people will say, well, I haven't run a marathon. So they'll either point to something they haven't achieved or how they don't measure up against other people. They'll say, well, my colleague holds a higher title, or they'll say, well, all my friends are married with a house and I don't even have a romantic partner. So they'll point to things that they don't have or haven't achieved rather than all the things that they've already accomplished. So I think that's what makes it a little tricky initially, is that sometimes people don't necessarily identify up front. They'll be like, well, I am a high achiever in some ways, but not in others. So what I've done is really help people find a way to look at the qualities of a high achiever. So not just looking at external kind of like academic degrees. And many of my patients are, JDs, PhDs, MDs, NPs, but I think there's more than that. I think it's really the qualities of a high achiever that make them as such. So I've definitely worked with people with no degree yet. Often when I'm working with students who they're just getting their bachelor's, but especially if they're first generation Americans where they're feeling a lot of pressure, they're like, Dr. A, I'm the first person from my family to go to school. So they don't hold a degree. That's not what makes them a high achiever. I think it's more about the qualities, about being driven, ambitious, setting goals. And actually in my book, The Happy High Achiever here, I have in the introduction a listing of, are you an anxious high achiever? And I do that because I think sometimes it can be hard to identify, okay, for the reader, did I make my way to the right book? And so I'll talk about, among other things, high achievers are productive, talented, goal-oriented, skilled problem solvers who love a list. And those are advantageous. But then I go on to list some less enjoyable, anxious high achiever qualities, like you are overwhelmed by self-doubt and your overextended schedule. You like to feel in control. You feel massive pressure to keep achieving big and impressive goals. You experience fear of failure, of making mistakes, or of being viewed as incompetent. And so I give a listing here to help people identify, are they an anxious high achiever?
Wow, okay. You just said everything that I've been telling myself for a long time. I guess I never put it this way. Like what you just said, I guess a high achiever never feels like a high achiever because we've never achieved what we're highly trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole conundrum right there to just put into perspective. Makes a
Yeah.
huge sense. Why someone not see themselves as a high achiever because I haven't gotten the partnership. I haven't got to that goal.
Yep.
So I want to go a little bit more on that if you don't mind.
Of course.
Because I get accused of this all the time. I'm never satisfied. You're never satisfied, André. Isn't that not enough? You're not making enough money. You're making enough money. What's more? But for me, it's the goal. It's not necessarily achieving the goal. It's a lot of times the journey. So,
Okay.
woohoo, I achieved the goal. Yay. What now? What's next?
Yep.
That's my drive. Is that a drive? Is that a different type of drive or is that a high achiever type of drive?
It's definitely a hallmark of a high achiever. And so what I help people do is try to strike a balance. And I think what you're talking about is wisdom, which is really value the process and the outcome. So if people are just goal driven and don't value process, that can become really problematic. And that's much more when I talk about striving for perfection. People are just, really attached to what is the outcome? Am I going to look perfect? Am I going to please people? And that rigid thinking is not helpful in terms of how we're going to feel and actually moving us forward. So my first essential of my 8 essentials is strive for excellence, not perfection. And excellence is about striving for high achievement while also allowing for our humanity. And so what that means is we're going to make mistakes. We're going to look less than the best sometimes, and that's okay, because we can learn from setbacks. We can learn from mistakes and failures and keep moving forward. And that most importantly, any mistake, failure, fumble, flaw that we have never negatively impacts our actual worth as a person. That's huge, because often what I'll see is high achievers who are really struggling with perfectionism are tying their self-worth to their achievements, appearance, or performance. And what we know is if we make our internal worth beholden to external validation, we're looking for other people to validate our worth, we're going to live with chronic anxiety and worry.
So excellence is an internal measurement and perfection is an external measurement. Is that what I heard?
That's a great way of thinking about it in a lot of ways. I think definitely perfectionism is often about aspiring to meet this metric of success that's set by others. And so you're going to see a lot of rigid thinking. You're going to see a lot of people
With
pleasing.
perfectionism.
With perfectionism.
Right.
That's really when you're striving to be perfect and, flawless looking. And the problem with that is people are going to become terrified of making mistakes. And that's what I see. It really limits high achievers. So I often say perfectionism is the Achilles heel of the ambitious, because it limits them. They're going to be afraid to try new things, to venture out of anything that they might look less than the best at, right?
Or even achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah. And so really perfectionism is not the goal. What we're trying to strive for is excellence, which is setting our standards high, keeping those standards high where we like them. It's not about acquiescing to mediocrity or stagnation, but saying, I'm going to set these goals. I'm going to value process and outcome. I'm going to know that if I make a mistake, I'm going to learn from it. And then speaking to what you talked about is kind of being on to the next. That's actually something I cover in Essential number 7, celebrate the victories. And this is where I talk about the importance of really pausing to celebrate when we achieve a goal. And that's because as high achievers, we do kind of have this on to the next mentality. We achieve something and we're right on to wanting to summit the next mountain. But if you think about it, if you just climbed Kilimanjaro, are you hiking up to the summit and going, okay, I'm hiking down now, I'll go hike the next mountain? No, stay at the top for a little bit, take some pictures, eat a snack, drink some water. And what I talk about in Essential 7, Celebrate the Victories, is all the reasons why it's so important to pause. Pausing is not paralysis. Pausing is strategically taking time to appreciate that all that hard work paid off, and to refuel yourself. Just like star players don't stay on the court the whole time, we have to come off, they have to come off the court, Gatorade up, and then go back in. We do need to strategically make these moments as high achievers to pause and do self-care so that we can be sustainably high achieving.
Yeah, because when you start saying I have to celebrate the achievements and all that, I'm getting tired of hearing that. I'm supposed to have a party for every time I do something well. But you went on to describe something I want to rephrase a little bit, and it's something I'm starting to do, and because it's appreciating. What I heard from you is stop, be present in the moment to just recognize the achievement you did. Have your drink of water. It's more about being present and recognizing it, just not saying done it, off we go, who cares, move on.
Yes.
Being present right now for me is completely different than it used to be in the past, which is smelling the rose, smelling the air, just appreciating what's around you and trying to keep your future or past thinking out of the way and just what's now. And like Dr. Doug Brackman was on, and he was saying that the present is safe. And that's one way to appreciate the goal. So I like how you separate the celebration, have a party, rah, 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 like a lot of people want to do, but more being present and you to recognize personally of your achievement.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it. It's a mindfulness. It's being in the moment and really appreciating what you just did, right? And I talk a lot about gratitude because I really believe it's one of the most powerful agents for forward motion and for happiness, really. What we know is that gratitude-based thinking, so gratitude can help us feel better, lower our stress. There's a ton of health and mental well-being benefits from it. And then from happiness, then we know from research that happiness then fuels success, because when we're happier, we're more productive, resilient, creative, collaborate better. So it starts with gratitude though. And
Yeah.
that's something I talk about in the book. I kind of debunk the gratitude myth. I think we're often
Over
socialized.
gratituding.
I don't think they're going to be over gratituding. I think the gratitude myth is that we're taught that we have to aim to be successful. And then when we're successful, then we'll be happy. And then when we'll be happy, we'll be grateful. But really, it's entirely backwards. That if you start with gratitude for being grateful for where you are in this moment, for what you do have and what you have achieved. And again, it's not about denying or avoiding reality. There's real challenges. I'm a health psychologist by specialty. I help people with cancer, autoimmune issues, really challenging medical conditions and medical regimens of complexity. So we're not denying or avoiding hard stuff. What we're saying is in this present moment, we are choosing to appreciate what is meaningful or valuable or good, and really taking that in, because our brain is like Velcro for bad, but Teflon for good. That's Dr. Rick Hanson's quote that I love. And it really, we have to help our brain take in the good, because that's what's going to strengthen us on our next journey, our next summit up the next mountain.
Yeah, and for me, what I did a long time ago, in OneNote, I've got a page or a notebook that's called Happy Moments. So I just put things that's been well, or so I go back there and review every once in a while. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Usually my case is I forget what I achieved.
Yeah, that's the issue. Oh, I love that. I'll have people write, I'll have my high achievers write down, look at all that you've
Just
done.
happy moments, right? If you
Yes.
want me to be present, what did I do? So yeah, that really helps a lot. Now, I just want to go procrastination excellence, all right? So I do this a lot. Definitions. Perfections, condition, state, or quality of being free or as free as possible from all flaws or defects. A person or thing perceived as the embodiment of perfection. And then the action or process of improving something until it is faultless. That's where the self-sabotaging things can come along. And I think it's measuring against the external, someone else or something else. Now, excellent is two sentences. The quality of being outstanding or extremely good. An outstanding feature or quality. There's no measurement here. Yeah. And what you were talking about earlier, I think the 80% rule will work here.
Yes.
80% is good enough for most people. And it should be for us as well. Yes. But perfectionism requires 110%.
Yeah, perfect is the enemy of done too. When you're trying to be perfect, I often find high achievers will do what I call perfectionism fueled procrastination. They won't even start a project. So if they have an important task, project, presentation, if they're really building it up in their head as this is so important, Dr. A, everyone has to be totally blown away by my presentation. You know, my project has to be perfect, just right. They get so overwhelmed that they won't even start. And so there we really have to work on, you know, what are you telling yourself? You do not have to be perfect. We can't as humans be completely without mistake or fault or failure.
Can you repeat that last thing again? Because that hit me. Yes. I just want the listeners to hear that again, because they're all going to go, wow, like true.
Which part? So the
part we tell ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, really taking a look at what are you telling yourself in that moment? Are you telling yourself this has to be perfect, just right? That is not going to help you. That is going to overwhelm you and make you actually less likely to start the project. And the best thing to do is start, overcome that inertia, and to tell yourself you really just have to do your best. As humans, we cannot be perfect.
Yeah, and I think with the ADHD brain, with the sensory overload, being able to be overloaded sensory wise, overwhelmed quite easily because nothing gets filtered out, we take it all.
Yeah.
Would be, I guess, in the mechanism is to crap on ourselves, to not move forward, in a way to control, to reduce the overwhelm. Because in a way, the ADHD brain, once it's in overwhelm, it freezes. It just doesn't know what to do.
Yep.
Maybe my perfectionism, high achiever is still going to push through and make things worse. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just trying to correlate the two things you said there.
Yes. So what I'll do when people are in a moment of overwhelm, like I've definitely had people come into session and they're like, Dr. A, I'm freaking out. The very first thing I have them do is just take 3 deep breaths, right? So I teach people that we can calm our nervous systems, that fight or flight part of our brain, where we're just not able to even access that prefrontal, that prefrontal cortex because we're so overwhelmed. So I'll teach them like in through the nose for a count of 4. And then long extended exhale out the mouth for like a count of 6 to 8. And we do that 3 times. It helps calm them. And then we start talking through, okay, what are you telling yourself? I call it, where are you shining your flashlight? Just like you shine a flashlight in a room, where you put your attention. So the flashlight's your attention, where you're focusing your attention, what thought you're focusing on is what's going to directly impact how you feel and your behaviors. So we know from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, empirically supported treatment for anxiety and depression, that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all directly related. They all directly impact each other. So they have this powerful relationship. So if you're focusing on, this will never, be done, I'm never going to finish this, oh, this is going to take forever, I'll never get it right. If you're thinking those things, how's it going to make you feel? Not good. It's going to make you feel overwhelmed.
They
and
influence each other and build off each other.
Completely, right? So getting really just aware. I talk about raising our awareness about what we're telling ourselves, our self-talk, because then we can move from awareness into action and really start challenging those unhelpful thoughts, what we call cognitive distortions, unhelpful thoughts. And I call it, poke holes in those suckers. Ask yourself, how is my thought not necessarily true?
Yeah,
because
fact check it.
Fact check it. Exactly. Because what we're telling ourselves are not facts. They're just thoughts. And so we really have to question the veracity, the accuracy of those thoughts and see, is this even necessarily true? And sometimes is this even helpful? And often our thoughts are not necessarily completely true, and they're definitely not helping us. So then we can create new and improved self-talk. So I help patients do that so we can move forward.
Yeah. So it's like saying, my negative self-talk will help me feel, if I'm already feeling bad, then my thoughts will convert to make you support the feeling bad.
It's not, unhelpful negative thinking is not.
Yeah, so it's all connected, related, just trying to, it's amazing what the brain can do to help you. It's just there to help you survive and protect you. Even though it doesn't know if it's a good or negative consequence, it's just there to protect you. It's amazing.
It is. And so that's why sometimes people are thinking, oh, I have to make this perfect, because they're so afraid of being viewed as less than the best, because they think that will mean they're incompetent. People will think they're foolish. And there's just so much social comparison going on nowadays too, that I see, Andre, like perfectionism. I'm helping so many people with that. And I'm wondering, I think that social media, which can be used for good for sure, but social media is often contributing to that, because patients will say, Dr. A, like, I know they can even articulate, I know it's like a curated highlight reel, like I get that, but they're still saying, well, I'm so behind, look at what my friends are doing.
That's the brain doing that, right? Subconsciously. It's not a conscious effort.
Yeah, they're still taking it in as like, look at what everyone else is doing. And then they start thinking, well, I should. So a cognitive distortion that's very common with high achievers is should statements, right? I should be doing that. I should be doing more. I should be able to handle all of this. And then they just berate themselves. And again, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, if they're thinking, I should be able to handle all of this, I should be doing more, look at what they're doing, how do they feel? Not good about themselves.
No.
Behaviorally when we should ourselves, we behaviorally actually usually keep ourselves stuck. It's not motivating, right? It erodes our self-confidence. All
right. So now that you just explained how achievers shit on themselves all the time, feel bad.
Yep.
Well, it definitely leads to burnout. I know that. I've just been going through this in the last 8 months. I really keep in check on my mental health. I was always approaching the line of burnout, but still there. With the anxiety, you're saying it's self-induced anxiety to a certain extent, high achiever.
Well, it can be a whole lot of different things. And people have asked me about that. This book is for everyone. So anyone who's struggling with anxiety, chronic stress, worry, but certainly I always say the book isn't a substitute for therapy. Like there are people who really are struggling with things that they need to see a trained mental health professional with, right? So people are having panic symptoms, chronic worry that feels difficult to control. There are kind of different levels of anxiety and
all right, let's just talk about the lower level anxiety from day to day and burnout. Don't need to go to see professional help every time we get burnt out. That's fact of life for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs. What can we do to reduce burnout and manage our ambitions that will not cause us problems?
Yeah, great question.
Or reduce the problems, I shouldn't say, not cause them.
Yeah, that's a great question. So chronically unmanaged stress often is what's contributing to burnout, right? So the most important thing is to start managing our stress. And how do we do that? In two major ways. We're going to optimize our self-talk and our self-care. So again, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, optimizes cognition. So that's your thoughts, your self-talk, and behaviors. And a large part of that is self-care. So something that I've been asked a lot recently is like, is being a high achiever bad? Is ambition and drive bad? Ambition and drive are great. That's not the issue. What I see is chronically unhelpful self-talk and a relentless pace behaviorally where people are not implementing self-care. So what I teach is how to optimize our self-talk. And then around self-care, this one I've learned I had to really streamline this for high achievers because we're busy, right? So high achievers have overextended schedules, so many personal and professional demands and deadlines. So what I actually came up with was an acronym, SELF. So the 4 science-based self-care fundamentals, SELF, of self-care to help people prioritize what self-care activities to do. And why I developed that is because often people would come in thinking self-care meant, well, Dr. Ray, I don't have time for a 2-hour-long bubble bath or a week-long meditation retreat. And so I had to immediately debunk that self-care does not mean these lengthy, complicated activities. All I mean by self-care is taking good care of yourself on a regular basis so you can feel and be your best. So if you want, I can run through those for
Yeah,
the
please do it quickly. I do like
Yes.
the acronym.
Yeah, it's nice and memorable. That's why. And it really is the science-based self-care fundamentals. So it's a good it's the best bang for your buck in terms of where to put your time and effort. So S is sleep. I think we all know what it feels like to get bad sleep the next day. So what we know though is from research that chronic lack of rest negatively impacts things like attention, memory, concentration. So if you're already dealing with ADHD symptoms, sleep becomes even that much more important. Because we know that a good night's sleep, so that's 7 hours or more most nights, so 7 hours a night for adults, that can really help improve things like productivity, problem solving, decision making. So again, really, really important to prioritize sleep. That's the S of SELF. The E is exercise. And again, I think we know physical activity is so important. What I like to highlight here, 2 things. 1, 30 minutes most days. So keep it nice and doable. If we keep self-care doable, we'll keep doing it. Often high achievers like to go big and they're like, Dr. A, I should be going to the gym every day doing high intensity workouts. I should be, running or planning to run a marathon. I should want to run a marathon. And so then they end up doing nothing because it's this all or nothing. Yeah. So just 30 minutes, something like walking, really awesome, low risk of injury. And the other point about physical activity is one of the most efficient ways to manage stress because it reduces cortisol, that stress hormone. Yep. So it's a really effective way to prevent and heal from burnout. So that 30 minutes a day of walking is great bang for your buck. And even if you have to break it up into 3 10-minute bouts, that all counts. Sometimes people are
that's true. Good point.
It really counts. Keep it doable. Stay flexible with how you set your goals and achieve your goals, and you're much more likely to sustainably achieve it. So that's the E of SELF.
Yeah, and also for exercise helps with emotional regulation as well, I found.
Oh my gosh, absolutely, right? It's amazing for mood, stress, absolutely. So exercise, keeping that doable. L is look forward. And that one is the fresh one for a lot of people, which is look forward to pleasant activities. So the goal here is just plan at least one pleasant activity to look forward to each week. And it really makes sense. It's a powerful mood boost, just like when we're planning to go on vacation. Maybe vacation's 2-3 weeks from now, but just thinking about it makes us happy, right? Yeah. So we just got to keep that doable because we can't plan a vacation all the time. So just keep it doable. That could mean planning to meet up with a friend on a Saturday. It could be booking a massage on a Wednesday night. It could just be like, I'm going to get my favorite takeout on Thursday night after a long day. And just reminding yourself, oh, that's right, I'm going to do that. And I put it in my calendar and then I remind myself I'm going to do that. So it's like double bang for your buck because you're getting the mood boost every time you remind yourself. And then when you're actually doing the pleasant activity, you'll enjoy it too. So looking forward to something is huge for mood management.
A pleasant activity.
A pleasant activity. Yep. And so the key with that is make sure it feels really doable. It's not something that's going to stress you out. It's not something productivity based. I've had people be like, so Dr. A, I know I need to like vacuum. And I'm like, do you like vacuuming? Because that's not one of my favorite activities, but I always stay curious. And they're like, well, no, but I need to do it. And I'm like, well, that's a helpful activity. That's great. Plan that in. But what we're talking about is a pleasant activity you look forward to. So that's the litmus test is, will you look forward to it? Because that's where you're going to get the mood boost. And that's what the self-care comes from, is showing yourself you are worthy, right? We're showing ourselves, I am worthy of taking good care of myself. I'm worthy of putting something into my week that's not solely productivity based, which can feel hard for high achievers.
Yeah, we have to
right?
redefine productivity in the self-care way, which
High
is
five.
reading
Yes.
two pages a book minimum, picking up the guitar for 5 minutes minimum, which turns out to hours, turns out to multiple pages. But that small step, like you were describing, makes a huge difference. It's less scary. I don't need
Yes,
to put aside a
absolutely.
lot of time to
Yeah.
plan for it.
Yeah. And that, yeah, just like you said, kind of redefining success, redefining productivity, because if we want to be sustainably happy and high achieving, we have to prioritize self-care. We just have to. We have to
Yeah, I'm
prioritize
starting to
mental
believe
health.
that now. I never believed it until
We're going to burn
recently.
out. People
Yeah.
hit a wall. There's at some point, like somewhere kind of in their mid
Well,
or
it's a
late.
badge of honor too to work out through burnout for a long time, right? In the past.
In
I'm
the
just
past,
saying it's in the past.
I think
It
for
was,
sure. Oh, right on. It was like
yeah,
people would wear as a badge of honor, like, oh, I work 70 hours or this or that. But now what people are realizing is they're just going to be burnt out, and it takes a toll on their physical health, you know? And so I see people, when I've seen people in their 50s, 60s, I work in the financial district of Boston. I remember pre-COVID, especially, I would see these guys who were in finance for decades, and they would end up with health conditions, and they were like, Dr. A, I would give it all the money back just to have my health back. So it's something really like health is wealth, right? So we got to prioritize that. And then the last F of SELF is fuel. And again, we have to fuel our mind and body with healthy food. So nutrition, good hydration, drinking water is hugely important. Prioritizing things like lean protein, green veggies. These things really matter. We know for cognitive performance, it can really help us. And people, if you think about it, if you go hours without eating, it's really hard to pay attention, right? Or conversely, if we have a really big meal, like here in the States, like Thanksgiving, like no one wants to go work on projects and presentations after Thanksgiving. So it's like finding that balance of how to fuel yourself with good food and hydration, and also fuel your mind. I talk about fuel your mind with some quiet every day. How much are we barraged with information and problems to solve, you know, challenges to work through? Just a few minutes a day, even a few moments a day of deep breathing, being out in nature, journaling. I do a gratitude journal every night before bed. I list 5 things that I'm grateful for that day. Maybe a meaningful moment of connection, something that was a happy surprise. So, Andre, you get first spot in my gratitude journal tonight. I'll be writing down that I got to be on this podcast.
Awesome.
It's a great way to really, you know, prioritize focusing on something meaningful and good right before I go to sleep. And it helps me slide off to sleep with such just a nice way to reframe the day. And it's, again, it's not denying hard stuff might have happened as well, but we're taking control of what we're focusing on in the moment. And in that moment, it just feels so good to say, wow, even today, if it was a long day or challenges, I still had 5 things that I can point to that were meaningful, valuable, or good.
Cool. Those are really, I like that, the acronym self. Sleep, exercise, look forward to pleasant activity, and fuel.
Yes.
And wow, there's lots of things here. Perfection is attached to the outcome, which I really liked. And perfectionism is the Achilles heel of the high achiever. And perfectionism, what I'm taking it is perfection is an external measurement because we're tying it to the outcome, not necessarily what we want. And that the excellence, striving for excellence, is more of an internal thing, and 80% is good enough. And if we're not trying to go for perfection, excellent comes a lot easier. And our measurement is mainly of what we haven't achieved. That's why sometimes high achievers don't feel they're high achievers. That was a good one for me.
Yeah.
So, Dr. A, you keep calling yourself. Thank you very much. This is really good information, and a lot of people can take from it. Where can people find you? And just go, you can plug your book because it's just coming out recently at the time of recording.
Oh, thank you so much, André. I'm so excited. It's my first book. So again, The Happy High Achiever, 8 Essentials to Overcome Anxiety, Manage Stress, and Energize Yourself for Success Without Losing Your Edge. It's a practical guide detailing 8 essential principles to help ambitious people reduce their stress and anxiety and enjoy both happiness and high achievement. And it's based on my work as a clinical psychologist for well over a decade now, helping high achieving patients. So I'm so excited. You can find it on Amazon, any major bookseller. Please, everyone, stay connected with me out there. You can find me on my website, www.maryandersonphd.com. So MaryanDersonPhD.com. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Dr._Mary Anderson. So please stay connected. I would love to hear from listeners out there. And this was just so wonderful, André. What a fantastic conversation. I'm so
it was very
excited and grateful I got to be here today.
So we'll put a link to the book in the show notes as well as your contact info. So it's easier for everyone to find. You don't have to remember all that. And I just want you, the listener, to understand that the high achiever ends up being your own worst enemy. It's an unmanaged strength. As I like to say, if your strength is unmanaged, it becomes a problem. So we just need to manage the high achieverism. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it can become our worst enemy and we get in our way. So now talking to you is we have a better way to control it. The awareness is a big part to understand it and take the self-care part out of it. And for you, the listener, question to you is your high achieving causing burnout? And will this self-care acronym help you be better aware to take better care of yourself, to reduce the burnout and worry? So Dr. A, thanks again.
Oh, thank you so much, André. And thank you to everyone out there. Take good care of yourselves. You deserve it.
And to you, the listener, thanks again for learning with me. Talk to you soon.